It's the 50-year anniversary this year of Manchester United being relegated. The last time they were relegated in 1974, and there's been a few articles this week suggesting there's a parallel between United's relegation back then and this season. Are there genuinely people who think that Manchester United could be relegated? I know that there was one Manchester United supporter who said they deserve relegation. I can't remember who that was. Maybe you can remind me, Alex.
I don't think I said it publicly, but yeah.
You did. You said it on air. You said it on air the last time we were in the building together.
Is that right? Well, I'll reiterate, there are players in that squad who would be deserving of relegation to the Championship. The Glazers deserve relegation to the Championship, but obviously the fans don't, and it's not going to happen because there are too many bad teams in the Premier League. But it comes to something, doesn't it, when we get to halfway through the season and we're talking about whether Manchester United are genuine relegation candidates as opposed to if they can push for a European place. And
well, this came about because he said after the game at the weekend, we just have to survive.
Yeah, I don't think he was necessarily talking about relegation.
I don't either.
No.
I think he was talking about getting through this period.
Agreed. But obviously you can take that into whatever context you want. I think Ruben Amorim, I mentioned it on Friday and said that I admire his kahunas because he's left a very stable job in Lisbon where he's a hero to come to Manchester United. And I think he was well aware of the size of the task that he was taking on. I think he continues to be well aware. They've got Newcastle tonight, as we're talking about live on talkSPORT. Liverpool on Sunday. You and I will be at Anfield, and I know they got a 0-0.
Can't wait for that.
They got a 0-0 there last season, but they're going to get battered, let's be honest. And then they go to Arsenal away from home in the FA Cup. So it's difficult at this moment in time to see where Manchester United's next win are coming from. And Newcastle, who've picked up a couple of really good results over United in recent seasons, come to Old Trafford in buoyant form. In Alexander Isak, alongside Mo Salah, they've probably got the most informed player in the Premier League. And United haven't got their captain, Bruno Fernandes. So I think it's a really difficult game.
Yeah, huge game. This is what Ruben Amorim said after the defeat at Wolves about the long-term challenges of the club.
I said it before everybody. It will be a long journey, and this moment will be really tough, and we are not near that moment. So we have to continue to improve in all aspects of the game. We need to have time to train, and then when you are in this kind of moments in a big club, it's really hard to go out. But we will continue to fight.
Some have criticised Amorim for sticking with his style of play. I mean, I don't think you can do that, bearing in mind the biggest criticism that anyone had of Erik ten Hag was that he didn't have a style of play. We've seen a lot of managers who have come into the league over recent seasons really have an identifiable vision for their club. And that's the point of implementing a style. It's not the sort of the point of a long-term style to have short-term pain. So to sort of, you will get short-term pain if you want the long-term gain out of it. And you have to be able to sign players that suit that style. But Manchester United are going to find that very, very difficult over the next couple of windows because they're in a PSR issue. So this really is genuinely about shaping the players that he's got and moulding them into the system that he has. I think pre-season is going to be massive next year.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's also why he's taken such a hardline stance, Amorim, when it comes to Marcus Rashford and obviously Alejandro Garnacho as well, because I think he has to polish what he's got there, and there's not much to polish. I could use stronger terms, but he's got to get the best out of this group of players. There aren't many saleable assets there now either. I know there's been talk of interest from Real Madrid in Lisandro Martinez. If that interest is genuine, I would expect United to cash in because PSR-wise, and this is why we're seeing all the cuts that Ratcliffe is making, this is why they put all the kits in the club shop at half price on the website just before Christmas, and again in the Boxing Day sales, because they need to get as much money in the coffers as they can in order to reduce the risk of any PSR punishment. So I think United fans who believe that Amorim's going to get a blank cheque and can just go out and buy who he wants, Victor Gyökeres, for example, for £100 million, I think they're going to be disappointed.
I was in the crowd for the Nottingham Forest game. There was a lot of sort of frustration and disappointment in the crowd on that afternoon just before Christmas. I imagine there's quite a few Manchester United fans going to this game tonight that are full of trepidation. Nobody expects them to win this game because Newcastle are in absolutely terrific form. And a lot of that is down to the fact that Alexander Isak rapidly turning into one of the most coveted players in Europe. He's scored, I think, 6 goals in his last 7 games, or it might be the other way around, 7 goals in his last 6. But he's got 13 goals this season. Most of them have come in a purple patch over the last few weeks. It's been really impressive. I mean, how close is he now to being the second best striker in the league behind Erling Haaland?
I think he is, and I think he's probably the second best player in the league at this moment in time behind Mo Salah. Maybe Cole Palmer would have something to say about that as well. But he's a phenomenon. And obviously I mentioned a few weeks ago that maybe one of the issues that clubs trying to prize him away would have is his injury record. But actually, he has stayed fit more often than not this season. And when he's fit and he's firing... I
gave you a bit of stick about that, saying he was more durable than you were making out.
Well, this season, previously he's had injuries. But what is he, 25? So he's coming into the peak of his powers. I can understand why Newcastle are trying to set the transfer fee so high. I guess the issue they've got is that they've been trying to negotiate a new contract with him for some time, as I understand it, and it's not really developed. He has got plenty of time left on his current deal, so it's not an immediate issue. Because I think he's got his sights set on playing in the Champions League. And listen, he could do that with Newcastle. He did it last season, and they're not that far away. In fact, if they win tonight, they go 5th, which probably will come the end of the season will be enough for a Champions League place. But I think he's just keeping his powder dry to see how the season unfolds, because it was only a few weeks ago that maybe we were asking questions, or certain people were asking questions about which direction Newcastle were going in. But certainly the last few weeks have been excellent.
I can't begin to tell you my admiration for Eddie Howe. When you look at their net spend over the last year or so and what he's done in comparison to other teams and how he's managed to... Look, last year they should have been in Europe, right? The only reason they weren't in Europe was because Manchester United won the FA Cup final. If they hadn't have done that, they wouldn't have dropped out the European places. If this season they get back into the Champions League, that's 2 Champions League deliveries in 3 years from Eddie Howe. That's outstanding. That is absolutely outstanding from the base from which he inherited.
And one cup final already, and they're in a semi-finals again this season. I agree with you. I think he's done a terrific job. But I think in order to keep their best players, Isak, Bruno Guimaraes, maybe even Anthony Gordon, who was close to Liverpool in the summer, they need to be competing regularly in the Champions League. And they've got a great chance to do it this year.
Also, tactically, he's made a really big decision in the last few weeks, which I think sort of helped them out. It was like moving Tonali back into the 6th role, which allowed Bruno Guimaraes to go a little bit further forward. Obviously, Joe Linton plays a little bit further forward on the left-hand side of that 3-man midfield. And also, like, after the Brentford game when they lost, they had like a heart-to-heart in the dressing room, or I think it might have been at the training ground, where they all sat down and they said, right, what are we going to be here? Are we going to be a team that just sort of lollops around in sort of mid-table, or are we going to go for it? And they obviously told each other some home truths. And from there, they've won every game. And then they've not just won every game. They have thrashed Aston Villa. They've thrashed Ipswich Town. They've been on a brilliant, brilliant run. I think they dismantled West Ham as well. But they've been playing really well the last few weeks. So, look, good luck to them. And they'll be hard to stop tonight. Their record at Old Trafford is tough. I think it's 1 win in 39 in the league.
It was quite a big win, though, wasn't it, from what I remember? 3-0?
1-0. Alan Pardew was the manager. Who scored the goal? 2013 it was.
Cisse, Cabaye?
Cabaye. It was Yohan Cabaye, 11 years
Oh, it was 3-0 in the League Cup last season. That was the game I was thinking of.
Oh, yeah, Lewis Hall scored that day. A brilliant volley from the edge of the area. That was a League Cup game, yeah. And they played really well, actually. And they made significant changes as well for that game, if I remember rightly as well. Newcastle United, we did that live on talkSPORT. And we'll do tonight's live on talkSPORT as well. United against Newcastle United, live from 7 o'clock. Adrian Durham and Danny Murphy and I will be there. It's talkSPORT's 500th and final commentary of 2024.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.